Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for another Acropolis number 3 cast here for Cosmonarchy, the greatest and largest tournament we've ever seen play. We're in Gauntlet Stage A. This is the last of the upper round matches before the qualification series take place. So, let's see who we're going to be spectating today. ArbuzBudesh in the top left as our orange Protoss. Oh, it's Pumpkin! We love Pumpkin. And Kasuga in the bottom right as our teal Protoss. So this PvP on Mass Destruction is where we find ourselves for the first round here. It is cross spawns, so we could see a pretty banger of a game here, because even though both players are going to open Gateway, we'll see if they opt into Gateway Wars, as Kasuga has been known to do in the past against Smarty. And look at that, actually, he's going to cancel the Gateway. Arbuz going for Lattice instead. Already some interesting antics here, and we will see exactly what happens as this set goes on. Let's talk a little bit about the map veto. We've got time with the cross spawns here to talk about it in game number 1. Mass Destruction, our opener here after Brainstorm and Decapitation were vetoed. Near Impact will be our second map, and if we need a decider, it'll be Kingwa Valley after Crisis Vector and Blackwater Bastion hit the deck. Interesting that, and I guess Blackwater, Kasuga would want to veto that because it's a 4-spawn map. I'm interested in why Arbuz vetoes Crisis Vector. It feels like a pretty solid map for all races right now, but it's also kind of, I guess you could say there's not that much data on it in the long run. It's the newest map to really be added to the front and center situation. Certainly the newest map in general in the pool, but even like Brainstorm is technically like a port of Blue Storm, so people kind of know what to expect from StarCraft 1. It's one of those situations where it's like, oh, okay, this is a very new map. Mass Destruction's been around for a long while. People have played practice games on it, or just like, hey, I wonder if this map's any good, and that kind of stuff. And so, yeah, interesting. We'll have to see how things go. Now, that being said, this is, of course, Gauntlet Stage A, as mentioned previously, but Gauntlet Stage B will qualify 4 more players into the Battlement stage of Acropolis number 3. So, if you're not signed up for that already, and you're not in the Battlement stage based on your tournament placements, I highly recommend giving it ye old college try, because, honestly, we're going to go when we have 10 to 12 players. We have 5 signed up so far. I highly recommend getting in while it's hot, so to speak, because, if we lock it up and there's not that many top players playing, we've seen players like, for example, Grass Eater and Toyota Miguel participate in some of these tournaments. I actually think that as the field gets smaller of people who are interested in participating, maybe if those Peruvians show up as well, we think about how some of them are a little bit more excitable. And they play some really solid games, but they're currently at a lower level, class 4, class 3. We could genuinely see some of those players qualify in, to say nothing of people like Blade Hollow and Jimmy, who have been grinding it out and trying to play. Their odds are not nothing at this point, so just keep that in mind. I'm expecting, in the next time around, we should see some familiar names that end up making it in. But we could see some upsets. We could see some surprises. So I just wanted to point that out for anybody who's been a little bit reticent to sign up or forgot to sign up or what have you. It does look like Kasuga is going to catch ArbuzBudesh's Vassal, and he has scouted the second Nexus. So we will have an expansion for both players. I love this because it means that we get a macro game. Now, it does kind of feel like almost like they were forced to because of the cross spawns, but that's okay, right? They can play around with this. A Matrix and a Warden here. I feel like Kasuga might be maybe over-indexing a little bit on anti-Vassal play. Seedent coming down here in the main base. Extra Vespine will be afforded to Arbuz once that's finished up. What's the tech path going to be from here? I mean, if Kasuga starts making Mass Gateway, I don't think that that's going to go very well. Especially into multiple Lattice, where he's already got Manifolds and Idols. Obviously, the second Manifold yet to pop. A Golem as well for frontline. Oof. It would be so hard to break that. Now, that being said, I guess if he goes Mass Strider, it could be different. We actually saw Smarty Cakes versus the Shambler go an interesting direction with all of the Drakidans, all the Striders, against the Idols and such. That does allow you to be more precise with your attacks and more enduring. And Kasuga kind of taking a page out of that book. Now, I believe these games were actually played in a different order. I'm pretty sure that like Shambler and Smarty played afterwards. And the replays might not have immediately been available for this Kasuga Arbuz set. So I don't know if Smarty Cakes or, I don't know if either of these players in this match have paid attention to the players in the other matches. So kind of just keeping that in mind here. I don't think that there's been a lot of time to study up on those replays. We are casting these well after the fact that they were played. Kasuga going for an Embassy at his natural. We've got quite a few idols here still. The little Manifold doing a dance. There's actually a lot of Manifolds. I wonder if this isn't too many. Embassy at the natural and an Ardent Authority for Arbuz. Ardent Budesh, you could say. The Arbuz Authority. There you go. I forget which one of those words is for watermelon. I assume it's Arbuz, but maybe not. Because I think the name translates to "Do you want a watermelon?" or "Would you like a watermelon?" or something. So who knows? But the authority of "Do you want" that's perfect broken English. So if that is actually what Arbuz Authority means, then that's great. Somebody put in the comments what that actually means. I think it's beautiful either way. So we are going to see not just the Witness come out, but obviously the Stargate for Kasuga is going to lean towards land effect. There's been a lot made, much ado made about the land effect in PvP, and I'm interested in seeing if it's as significant now as it used to be. Because now it doesn't disable air units, which allows air-based counterplay in the form of other land effects, panoptises to hunt them down. Obviously, if you have enough Striders or enough ranged DPS anyway, you can deal with them. I guess the Ardent will probably be for Acantors, but it could be for Positrons. Let's see what Arbuz wants to do. A Prostration in the main. Okay. So straight to tier 3, actually. The Ardent Authority currently just going to be a little bit of a stepping stone. We'll see what... Okay, it is going to be an Acantor. And that makes sense. The Witness is here. The Bulwark is there to detect as well, but it doesn't look like Kasuga necessarily noticed. Yeah, scouting 2 Stargate here is very big for Arbuz. He doesn't have as many workers as Kasuga does, so interesting that the our sole player from Taiwan, I believe, to ever play competitive Cosmonarchy with the rest of us, is currently outstripping the macro of Arbuz ever so slightly. He did get his expansion off like slightly faster, and now his Witness following the enemy Witness. This is exactly like PvP in StarCraft 1. It's just there's no Dragoons to help out in this moment. All right, the Idle Manifold Squadron is leaving the building. We've got no envoy coming from that embassy. Instead, it's artisans towards the bottom left. These double prostration stages are going to be for something. I'm guessing pariahs. I don't hate Kasuga's positioning here, but I think if a lot of pariahs and Acantors get started, that could be a big problem. Taking the mineral-only base as the third is an interesting choice as well. Obviously, Kasuga does see that with his own Witness. Yeah, this is starting to seem a lot more like a fundamental type of game where you're just going to see, you know, one player's macro outstrip the others ever so slightly, and the tech progression is going to help decide this kind of game. I do think that, and this isn't always the most entertaining solution for the viewers, but I do think we might have a game where the first army engagement it swings the fight one way or the other, and that's who takes the game. I could be wrong about that. We'll see. We are getting some exemplars in. We have a trapped Drakadon, which is hilarious. They always find a way to get trapped, even in StarCraft 1, of course. And so now we've got Kasuga taking the 6 o'clock position as his third base. This one does have a geyser and a ridge, as well as, what is that? 8 mineral fields. So that's a pretty good amount of resources. Comparatively, the 7 mineral fields of this mineral-only base is not necessarily going to be quite enough to tide Arbuz over if this 6 o'clock base gets fully established. It is kind of vulnerable to being flanked, but you can set up enough static defense that it's not too bad. Of course, these mineral-only bases can be quite the chore to defend themselves, but we'll see. We'll see what ends up happening here. It looks like the Acantor was only there for defense, as we have multiple pariahs being pumped out of the prostration stages, and Kasuga's got a decent amount of minerals to float here. We'll see what he ends up attempting. If he made one envoy, he could airlift the Drakadon out, obviously, but he could also pick up the Warden. You can pick up static defense structures, FYI. This Witness spotting at 9 o'clock. Yeah, this is very much a slower-paced game because the players are just choosing to build up their respective techs, and this is where it can get to a point where, like, one army is just better suited to fight the other army than the reverse, right? Than the inverse. So it will end up in a situation where I feel like we are building up towards this one heated confrontation, like they've decided no rush 20 minutes as we get deeper into the game and the third base comes up online. We got an Argosy starting for Kasuga. We'll get to see some high-stakes Protoss toys, but I do regret to inform you, this is a Cosmonarchy podcast right now. A lot of static defense being set up here at 6 o'clock. Arbuz is seeing that base has been taken, but not the mineral only. He's going to take the 12 o'clock as a counter. And we need to see what Kasuga does in response. I think, you know, at some point, it does come to head, right? Are you going to be like somebody who's just going to keep expanding when your opponent expands? Or are you going to start attacking them as they attempt to expand? That is the question. Obviously, Kasuga does see this Nexus being warped in at 12, so he has the information. He's going to set up his Wardens and Bulwark and start harvesting. He's already capped the Seedent here, the Ridge here. He's capped the gas in his main, as far as the Geyser, but not in his natural, so that's interesting. That's something that, conversely, Arbuz has not done. Honestly, I kind of feel like Kasuga's army could be really powerful here because of the Exemplars. His ground army, it probably won't hold up to the Pariahs. It definitely won't hold up if the Acantors are involved. But the air, I guess the Manifolds and the Idols can really splash down the Exemplar, but the range disparity there does feel like it. Depending on how the engagement goes, Kasuga can absolutely take out some of the army of Arbuz. He's making Solarians, which I actually think is not going to help him. If we think about it, Manifold's increasing the armor penetration, allow Idols and such to deal so much damage to the Stewards, which are the new name for the Interceptors. But I don't think the Solarian is going to be too valuable. Here's a drop from Arbuz. It's only gotten 2 workers so far. Oh my god, no! Oh, Kasuga. Kasuga has lost 17 workers. Unbelievable scenes. Well, he was ahead in workers up until somewhat recently. There was a narrow outstripping for Arbuz. He was up by like 2 or 3, and now he's up by 20. So that kind of goes to show you just what's going on. As a gentle reminder, the mineral fields here are supplemented by the fact that we've got 2 artisans harvesting this gas geyser. So Arbuz has technically been up material for a little bit now. Now, will he actually do something to translate that economic advantage into a powerful attack? We've got 1 Solarian done, a second one on the way. Crucible empowering some of that advanced technology, not this secondary Stargate, unfortunately. Eventually, Protoss are going to get really good at their base layout, and it's going to be so nice to see like how they set up their crucibles and stuff. Satisfying to check that part out. And I like that they have a little bit of thought that they can put into that kind of thing, you know? That's pretty good. Looking over what we've got here, there's still no witness with this army, so Kasuga will not deny Arbuz his vision. He's pivoting over here to see that the Nexus is going to start getting warped in the top right main. A little bit of counter there to the witness of Kasuga, but he's able to escape with it for now. And yeah, it looks like Arbuz is going to pull the trigger on moving out. Now, responsively, Kasuga is going to react to that, but his ground army is way less powerful than Arbuz's. The air, of course, is a pretty big power, but is it going to be enough? I don't know that the answer is yes. He certainly cannot frontline, and he cannot leave his Exemplars all stacked up. Now, the frontline, the ground army, is certainly tying up a lot of the armor penetration that the Arbuz Groundcomp has, but you can see the Pariahs just wrecking face here, and the Exemplars, I don't know what they're tailored on, but they are not choosing the right targets, and the Solarians are all out of Stewards, predictably, and I think there it is. Ladies and gentlemen, as predicted, one great big conflagration of a fight, and that's a wrap for the army. Not going to be able to do much here. He's trying to stall with the Exemplars and the Solarian over the little bridge there, but yeah, Positron idle shots, just cleaning house. There's nothing left here for Kasuga, unfortunately. He's starting to make Empresses. Okay, that kind of makes a lot of sense. He leveraged some of his power into a tier 4 tech structure, and he did not have an equivalent ground army to do anything here. Very rough stuff here. His mineral only going to get blown up before it even starts to see use. 1 Empress is not going to be enough. You'd need a nice little flock of them. And at this point, Arbuz has so much money in the bank, he knows he's basically won the game. And it looks like he'll be going up on his own map pick. Near Impact is going to be our second map, and it's a map that, even though there's a decent amount of chance for a macro game, I would say the action is going to be a lot more obvious in the early stages of the game. You won't see these levels of podcastery anytime soon. Pariah desperately trying, desperately doing what it can. It's struggling. Why was he? Oh, he's saturating the gas nodes, I guess. I was wondering why he was like, I will use all of my scribes, and then the Pariah will get 30 kills. Well, this Draconen's basically a Warden, right? So that works out. Well, as of right now, Kasuga has it all to do. The ground army is kind of breaking upon his defenses, but I think they are going to overwhelm the Wardens and the Engram. If he can get the Empresses to start runaway stealing some of these units like the Pariahs, then maybe he can turn the tide, but his worker line is getting shellacked. He's down once again by 30 some odd workers. You see the big drill there, courtesy of the dying zombified units from the Empress, that when they explode, they give movement speed to allies, so it allowed the scribes to escape a nice little consolation prize, but he's lost the Nexus on his third and his, well, his mineral only and his natural. He has nothing in the bottom left. He will eventually clear this army, but look at the rest of the map, my friends. We got a Monument of Sin warping in. The Vassal fleet has arrived to clear out the main. And, I mean, that's just insult to injury, right? Now come over here and kill the 6 o'clock. That's very funny. He decides to add a lot of Vassals at the end. 3 Crow's happy with this. 3 Crow's very happy with this. Sedent's gone. The workers will be next. Ignoring the shots there from the Wardens, just killing all the workers. A couple of units out here in the middle of nowhere. Gonna be spotted out. Oh no! A random Empress has been found. See ya. One thing that's kind of nifty about the Empress is that it kind of steals away the movement speed boost for the Vassals when they die. But yeah, he's just... This is bad, guys. This is very bad. Desperate bid here. Kasuga just trying to move across the map. Look at all the ground units, though. I think he sees this army and he just says GG, right? Like, no way. He's going to fight back to... He's going to cycle back to the bridge here, but his Solarians are all losing their stewards. He's stealing a couple of units here. He does have some concentrated power, but I don't think it's nearly enough. This is an army that's not meant to fight this air stack, and it's still keeping them entertained long enough for the Vassals to continue to be a nuisance. Where are the Vassals? I'm not quite sure where they are. Maybe they all died to the... Yeah, it looks like they all died to the Wardens, actually. So, all right. No worries there. But yeah, now that they're over the ground, that's the Pariahs diving on them. All the Solarians getting destroyed. GG's. Kasuga concedes, and Arbuz with almost 5,000 minerals in the bank wonders why that game didn't end 5 minutes ago. I'm sitting here wondering the same, but Kasuga has some time to think about his next move on Near Impact, where we go next for Game 2. And here we are, map number 2 here in this series. ArbuzBudesh in the top left as our Cyan Protoss. Kasuga in the bottom right as our... is this like Zafir or something? Oh, Ultramarine Protoss. Okay, gotcha. So we will end up seeing these two on a 2-spawn map. No chances for them to be any closer or farther from each other the way it is on Mass Destruction, which apparently Arbuz really enjoys. Shout out to him for picking that map frequently and enjoying that map. And now, here we are. He picked it against Smarty Cakes in their best of 5 in the Tribunal stage, by the way. So I know he's definitely an enjoyer, a Mass Destruction enjoyer. Both players opening with a Gateway. No cancel this time for Arbuz. He's not mining Vespene. That's the giveaway that it's Lattice first. And yeah, we're just going to sit here and see how this map opens up. I think a lot of the time, Near Impact has obviously some rush styles you can do. It affords that, but a lot of the times it is a little bit more macro-oriented. You will get into the mid-game more often than not on a map like this. The interesting factor of the island bases here that have resources galore for you to harvest from also factors into your decision-making. Do you go Artisans in this matchup? Something that Arbuz did in the last game a little bit. Shambler does a lot of it. And I don't really think I've seen Kasuga or Smarty do it too often in their P mirrors, right? So, you know, I mean, that's probably because they just Gateway War. But hey, Kasuga did make other tech in that last game. It just wasn't the right kind of tech. He didn't scout out his opponent's composition well enough. He had all those witnesses. I guess Arbuz made way more. But Kasuga did have a couple of witnesses on the other side of the map. Maybe it's just game knowledge, right? Not necessarily knowing which units to make under which circumstances, what kind of composition to go for. When you see a lot of Manifold Idol, you should expect that your stewards are not going to be able to cut it. I think had he made Epigraphs or Empyreans from the Argosy, that would have been a little bit better. Obviously, Didact, always good for utility to try to freeze part of the army. I don't know if that still would have not been enough, though, because Arbuz just had so many more, Pariahs and such to break through the ground army. And when the ground army collapsed, the air army needed so much more micro to actually get through things. So a little bit of analysis post hoc as to what's going on there. Oh, look at this. Kasuga going to go for a fast rogue gallery. We have not seen this in tournament games yet. I guess technically Kasuga did do this against Toyota in one of their matches earlier on in the tournament. I adminned that match, so I do know that, in fact, Kasuga has used the Kabbalist. So maybe that's exactly what he's going to do, but none casted yet, right? None casted have featured the Rogue Gallery in recent history. Legionnaires going to be making their way across the map. We've got a Nexus and a Pylon. Pretty fast 2-gate expand here for Arbuz. Not as fast as 1-gate expand, but maybe a little bit safer, right? Definitely something to keep in mind. And a Bulwark early on here for Kasuga. Okay, well, as soon as you see the Hierophant and some of the frontline defenses here, it's going to be interesting to see what happens. Oh, but this round is a really big mistake that Kasuga has allowed to happen. This could be catastrophic for him, losing the Hierophant so fast. We remember that this is the exact thing that happened in Arbuz versus Smarty Cakes, I believe. It was game 1 on Mass Destruction. He just went across the map with Legionnaires, killed the Hierophant, and then walked away. And if you don't punish that, if you don't conserve your Hierophant, the Legionnaires haven't wasted themselves. They haven't been, like, wasted minerals or anything, but they're going to be far less efficient in an actual battle. Picking off individual units in these low unit counts, that's what matters. They're kind of sharking around looking for the Ecclesiast or the Dracodon so they can isolate that. They will blow through the defenses there. But the Kabbalist is going to come out, and I don't think that Arbuz is necessarily going to be seeing the Shimmer. Yeah, in fact, he will not, so he's just going to go ahead and fall back a little bit. In fact, really what Kasuga is hoping for here is that the Kabbalist gets across the map unmolested and is able to take out some workers, and that he scouts like the ground army leaving or whatever before he strikes, sort of using the Kabbalist as a de facto scout while also attacking the economy with it. More Zealots and Dracodons have arrived. I think at this point, Arbuz has probably sniffed out that this is at least 2-gate, but he doesn't know how many other gates that it is. And I love this move here from Kasuga to use the Kabbalist. Definitely going to help himself out. The teleportation empowers the next strike, so it will one-shot the Scribe, as you're seeing here. Otherwise, it will take 2 hits. And you only teleport if you've been out of combat for 2 seconds. That's when you recloak, and then you can teleport. So right now, pretty good stuff here. He's got 4 kills, and he's counting. I love the little trap, the jail, that Arbuz had attempted to do there. Yeah, fuck my Nexus. And he's making an embassy. There's another Kabbalist lurking in. Oh, look at that. Going after the Warden. That's a little bit dangerous. Oh, no. He's going to get drilled on. 9 HP left. The other one now going to strike, but there's a Dracodon right there. Is he going to micro it is the question. That one goes down in the natural, and that one goes down in the main. So both Kabbalists, they did okay. This one in the natural did way less. Didn't force a cancel on the Warden. Killed 1 worker, I think. The other one got like 6 kills, so 7 kills maybe. Much better. But remember, Kasuga has no natural, so this is still a situation where he's only on par with the economy of his opponent and not for much longer. So he's going to move across the map with his ground army. If he can basically fight through this, I mean, he only has 2 Ecclesiasts, so it feels like he's not going to be able to immediately do the breach. Oh, the Bulwark finishes up as well. That's going to be really hard to break through. He's going to dive onto that Warden, but that was a big mistake. Losing an Ecclesiast at this hour, not good. He clears one of the Legionnaires. Not good for Kasuga because he is indeed down material economically. Grand Library will afford him some options. You can siege with Storm to some extent. I think versus Legionnaires, that's a difficult proposition, but it's a possibility nonetheless. We saw Dracodons versus Cantavis in Smarty versus Shambler, so that's interesting. A Charlatan has been made. A little bit of a force multiplier. Not a bad choice here. And it looks like there will be an envoy for what I'm assuming is going to be a positron drop or an Acantor drop. We will see. Yeah, it's a positron drop, it looks like. I don't think Kasuga can pounce on the envoy as it comes out. Yeah, he's not going to be able to. He wasn't even looking, so I don't think he even noticed. The worker saturation is pretty poor here for Arbuz's main base. Unfortunately for Kasuga, though, his Dracodons are kind of caught in the middle. The Zealot's nowhere near the front. So that's going to be a couple of gateway units going down here. Maybe 3 of them, in fact, as that Dracodon is very, very wounded. But it looks like taking the dive, cycling back. It's not terrible just yet. The Charlatans are going to be focused down shortly here, it feels like. But the Positron should end up getting nuked. Yeah, there you go. That's going to work out pretty well. The Witness here is seeing the complexion of the base, and we have multiple Amaranths being made. Remember, when you have detection, you can actually click on your opponent's structure and see what they are making. So whereas there's no Witness here, even if you see the blinking, you're not going to know it's a Dracodon making. That's not true for Arbuz. He has the Witness on top of the gateway. He can click on any of these and see what units are being made and what the progress bar is. Like, basically what we see. So that's very, very impactful. As expected, Arbuz is going to step ahead in terms of eco. He's going for a unitary union. He has been favoring Unars in certain engagements lately. He's got 1 positron earmarked for the mineral line of the main base, presumably. We don't have any standing army over here, but the 1 Warden should make it so that he has to land over here and, you know, reinforcements can pop out of these structures and deal with it. Still a little bit dicey. And when you see the Envoy, again, I don't think he did see the Envoy. Had he seen the Envoy, I think he definitely would have reacted a bit differently. He needs to pull the Amaranths here. There you go. Send him that way. He's going to immediately pull his workers back a little bit. Let the Warden try to help out. I love that he's hit the stop key here. He could definitely be microing his army a little bit better, his workers a little bit better. But he hit the stop key so that they didn't get splashed, right? And so he ends up taking way less damage than he could otherwise. He needs to get back on the mining, though. This is actually really disruptive for him. Hard to drill that into your brain, right? Like, Control 0 to put a Tempot key group on, you know, control group, and see what happens there. Meanwhile, at the front, we just need to see Arbuz hold, and he definitely will. This is only some Striders here. You can see Kasuga recognizes not all of the enemy's army is fighting at once. Here comes the Positron, though. Gonna get 4 kills. Can he get more? Can he get more? Looks like he only got 6 kills at the end of it. But not a dreadful investment. I mean, he's up by 8 workers, so without the Positron, Kasuga would have actually closed the gap, it feels like. And he's losing so many units at the front gates. I don't know what is happening for Kasuga. He's busy macroing, it seems, and only now is he going to realize he's lost so much pressure there, as most of his army was not engaged. I think that responding to drop pressure and the like is really difficult for players who are a little bit more new to the project and don't necessarily have the foundational skills to develop. Look at that. Positron line. The eraser. The Protoss eraser. All right, well, Kasuga has to fall back. The Unars are starting to come out, as somewhat predicted. We saw this against Krankendow. And funnily enough, it almost worked for Arbuz. It was game 3 on Radium, I believe. The Unars came out and definitely gave a different look to things, where Krankendow almost ended up getting owned. So that was back in the Tribunal stage. Envoy returning empty-handed for now. Static defense being added to the natural. Would love to see a little bit more, but you know, one Amaranth on either spot is probably fine. You know, you just reactively pull some of the scribes to one location, and then you're probably good to go. But third base now going to be coming online here for Arbuz. He's going to put it down well faster than Kasuga is. Prostration stage in addition to Embassy and Ardent. So catching back up in tech, but still behind, trailing in workers, trailing in third base. I don't think Kasuga's happy with his position, but he has a couple of tools that Arbuz does not have. He can send the Kabbalists around to see what's going on. Obviously, the Witness will tell him a lot once he gets that deployed. He can use that to try to clear his own base of a Witness, which we do see is still hovering in the mineral line here for Arbuz. So it sees the tech, sees that there's an Acantor on the way. And now, look at this, yeah, Kasuga is going to scout the army moving across the map, but is he going to respond to it? His Kabbalist trailed it very heavily there. Could have done a lot to warn him. The Witness also revealing big old blob of Cyan units in the middle. He's going to get a little bit of chip damage there, but the Warden's already up there, so he's really only able to get a tiny amount of moves there. Maybe he can get one more kill. There you go. That's all he got. So he got 3 scribe kills. Could have been slightly more, but that was very micro-intensive, right? And now an immediate pivot into a Monument of Sin. My God. Well, the Unar is here to try to do a lot of single-target damage. Most Protoss units can endure 1 volley from a Unars, but once you hit 2, you can start to like just right-click and delete certain units. It's a very potent tool in the arsenal that hasn't really been heavily explored. Charlotte and Acantor, though, can be just as potent, and the Amaranths are doing their best to DPS enough shield steal. The Unar is going to be brought down, but so too has all the frontline fallen for the most part here for Kasuga. Still, he's going to drive this army back. Maybe he's got a little bit more chance than I thought. Taking his third base, obviously going to be delayed compared to his opponent. The Monument of Sin represents a massive sink of money. I talked earlier about how the Synthetic Synod sent Kasuga behind a little bit because Arbuz attacked during his weakest point, during the transition point where he was sending a lot of money towards that tier 4 tech and then actuating it by building the tier 4 units. The same kind of thing could happen for Arbuz here, but it feels like he's a little bit too good, too well off to make anything happen. Oh my lord, the new evolution, the Vibrance drop is on the way. It's going to be a while before those scribes actually end up dying. You can see it's not the most DPSing unit, but it's hard to break down, man. It's really hard to bring down. Eventually the Vibrance will be brought down by the the Zealots and such. But yeah, a little bit hardcore there. He's going to need to get his workers back. It killed 4 workers, and that's only because those workers stayed to fight. If they had just left or drilled or whatever, they would have been completely safe from demise. But yeah, that's scary stuff. That's very scary stuff. The Monument of Sin completes, capping the ridge over here in the 3rd base, but not the main gas, I'm noticing. Instead, he wants to take a 4th. Kasuga gonna move out. He's been randomly dropped. The Vibrance is still in the Envoy. It can come back at any time. Another Warden defensively. Of course, the Witness is revealing that for Arbuz, so he's not going to be blindsided by it. And looks like he will be taking the opportunity to go for a Star Sovereign and a Nexus. So we are going to see the capital craft of all Protoss, the grief of all gods, may grace our screens. Pariah has been brought down to basically 3/4 of its health because of the Yunar, and that's through its shields as well. A couple of Acantor shots are going to go very, very nicely here. Try to break the line of ranged units that Arbuz has assembled. The Unars are pretty good at dealing with the Acantors, but they need to be tasked onto them. The Micro not quite there for Arbuz just yet. Got a couple of units strewn about as well. That Vibrance in the Envoy could be pretty big here. Well, he's going to see if he can use those Unars to great effect, but they're going to get engaged upon and immediately brought down. Great picks by Kasuga, but one of his Acantors did get shellacked in the process. The other one will not be long for this world. Focus down. The Pariah, the only source of true splash damage in this composition, won't survive long enough to kill more than 1 unit, and reinforcements are going to rout Kasuga as well. The next macro cycle complete. The Star Sovereign ascends, and we've got 2 Unars behind it as well. Plenty of room for additional macro here for Arbuz as he gets his base set up. The 3rd for Kasuga never really got off the launch pad there. And by the way, the Envoy with the Vibrance still chilling in the middle of the map. Static defense being erected here at the 4th base for Arbuz. He does seem to be in control. By the time this base gets genuine setup, I think the Star Sovereign's just going to move through and glass it, which is... It's beautiful. It's also terrifying. Oh, he just calls it. He must have scouted something, and that is a wrap. Arbuz, he was going to win anyway, but that is definitely... a funnier way to go out. You just scout that there's a Monument of Sin or whatever, and then it's over. Maybe the overall feeling that, like, I've been routed, I've been destroyed. Well, Arbuz will take it 2-0. Kasuga falls to the lower bracket, and he will have to fight his way to a lower qualification set. But now it's Arbuz versus the Shambler, PvP some more, of course. They both practiced for it in the previous matches. And on the other side, we have Top Ramen versus Shopkeeper Dog. So TVT and PvP. I'm excited to see what happens here. Going into the lower bracket, we are going to see whether or not the people who have been dismissed so far, Cannoli, Hapsea, Smarty Cakes, Kasuga, can fight each other and ascend to the lower qualification. Whoever loses the upper qualification matches immediately gets placed into lower qualification. That's the way that the format works. So, you know, if say Arbuz beats the Shambler and Top Ramen beats Shopkeeper Dog, which would be the expected result based on seeding, Shopkeeper Dog and the Shambler would immediately be seeded into their lower qualification sets independently of each other and await challengers from deeper into the tournament bracket. So, we've got a lot left for us in a Gauntlet Stage A. At least 4 more matches I'll cast, which are the qualification series. Join us for those later on in the week, and I'll see you guys next time.